Okay, a very good morning to all of you. Um, I'm so happy to see quite a few known names around here this morning. Thank you so much for being intentional about giving your time here this morning. We're looking forward to what kind of expertise we're going to hear this morning, and thank you for your time. Thank you for taking time to register, to be a part of it. Now, I know that some of you may need this information for yourself, but some of you might also be here to share information with the others who are in need. So either way, it's great you are here. We're so happy to have you. And on behalf of the Managing Life Challenges in a Crisis team, I want to welcome all of you this morning. For those of you who would like to have your videos on, you're free to do that. We will start in a few seconds. We'll just pray and start and commit this time into God's hand for it to be a blessing for us. Okay, so we'll just pray and get started with our session for this morning. Father, we want to thank you, God, for this time that you've given us. We want to thank you, God, for the joy of just being able to benefit, Lord, from technology and to be able to connect in this manner, even during a time like this, God. Father, we are grateful to you for your blessings upon us. We are grateful to you, Lord, for the ways in which you meet us, God, at the point of our needs. And this morning, Lord, we want to very specially commit our session into your hands. We pray, Father, that you will bless it all, God. Every word spoken, I pray that it will be from you. And I pray, God, that you will be glorified in and through all of it, Lord. We pray, God, that you will be with every participant who's here and all those who are about to join as well. We ask, Father, for your blessing upon everything that we do. We thank you, God, for your goodness. We love you, Lord, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. So it's great. It's really exciting that we are able to connect in this way. It's exciting that we are able to, entirely jump over this hurdle of these restrictions that COVID has imposed on us. And I think all of us count it a blessing that we are able to connect in this manner, to have technology to be able to do this. And just to give you a little insight into what this whole MLC, as you would have got messages or emails, right? Managing life challenges in a crisis. And just to give you a little insight into what this is all about and how this whole thing was started. We are a group from the Emmanuel Methodist Church, and we have been seeing in our own circles that a lot of our people have been experiencing a lot of challenges during this time, and there have been challenges in terms of financial needs. There have been challenges in terms of emotional needs, mental health, and one of the things that have really stood out particularly is the challenges that people have experienced in job fronts over this entire period. And we know that there are different sectors which are just not used or just are so clueless of how to go about things without being physically present. It's a lot of areas have been challenged because of all that COVID has imposed on us. And it's really that whole burden that kickstarted this whole thing. It's really that whole pain that we were able to see in a lot of our near and dear ones that I think God really pushed us to do something of this nature. And it is really our desire to get the best at the best resources that we can, to bring the best resources and to bring the the deepest of needs together at one point. And that's pretty much what this whole forum is about. So there are a lot of challenges. And last week was last session, which was on August 15th, was the very first session that we had. And that session was on managing finances during COVID. So we had some great resource persons. We had Glenn Carr, who is the co-founder of Finmark. So that is a financial advice company. And he had some great insight to share with us. So, and then we had Mr. Cyril Gobi, who heads another company as well. So that was the first session that we did. And we're so thankful that we've been able to do this. We've been able to execute it. And we are really waiting to see what God is going to accomplish in and through all of this. So that is just to give you a little brief of what this whole forum is about and what we intend to do through this forum, right? Now, if you were not with us for the previous session, there is a YouTube channel that we have, and it goes by the name Managing Life Challenges, right? As simple as it sounds, Managing Life Challenges. If you just look that up on YouTube, it will land you on the channel. If you hit the subscribe, then you will be one of those, the very first to have subscribed and to have access to the videos. So what we ideally do is all of these sessions are recorded, and they are made available for viewing later. So at any time, if you had missed the previous session and would love to know what happened, just go click, it's in the chat box. The link is on the chat box to the YouTube channel. So go click and then just take a look at the video. That is one. And if you would like to know of upcoming events, that will also be posted there for you. So if you want to be one of those first knowers of the information that we have, subscribe to the YouTube channel. A few things that we'd like to just, I'd like to just brush through before we get started. If we could, a few to-dos through the session is I would like you to request you to please keep your mics on mute so that, we don't have any interruptions through the sessions. The second thing is you're free to leave your videos on, so we know it's a lot easier, it's a lot better for the people speaking to see faces and, interact that way. So that would be great as well if you could leave your videos on, so we have faces speaking too. The third thing is we will have a time of question and answers. It's very simple. The link is posted in the chat box again. You will see the link. So click on that link. It will take you to Slido, which is the platform that we'll be using. Now, once you click on that, you will see it's pretty straightforward. So you'll just have to click on that, enter the following code 87460 as you see on your screen being shared right now. Post your questions. You don't have to wait until the end of the session to ask a question. So you can just keep posting it as and when something pops up in your mind. Go ahead, shoot your questions. We will be viewing it real time. And if there is a question that's already been asked, go ahead and hit the vote. So we will have an idea of how many people have a particular question that is to be answered. And we will probably, place that on priority, or depending on how much time to be spent on a particular question, voting up will help us with that. So that is as far as question and answer session is concerned. So don't wait until the end. Keep shooting your questions. The next thing, and most importantly, is feel free to have a cup of coffee with you or water with you, so you don't have to get up in between. It's okay, you can sip on your coffee as you're listening to the sessions. That will be fine as well. But I think that is about just a few things that we need to know before we head into the session. Anything else, Ranjit and Rajesh, anything else you'd like to chip in?
No, Deepa, we are good.
Great, all right. So just a few things, right? So this session, we are looking at wading through job uncertainties, equipping and upskilling. So I think a lot of us here and a lot of us in our own circles, right? We are faced with this huge giant of uncertainty right in front of our eyes. It's probably just life itself has become so uncertain with what COVID and everything has thrown at us. And it has impacted every facet of our lives, right? And so we are looking at how the church can be proactive in answering these questions, how the church can be proactive in helping one another wade through this time. So one of the topics that we, like I mentioned earlier, we did wading through financial struggles during this time. And today we're going to be focusing on wading through job uncertainties at this time. And there is a lot to be said about our resource persons today. Mr. Emmanuel David and Mr. Joshua Madan, who we have with us. You can probably clap using your reactions to welcome them for this morning. But there is a lot to be said. They are, I mean, they are experts in their areas. And one of the things, yes, there is a lot that they have to them, a lot of accomplishments. And I think if that list would go on, to summarize all of it, right, in just my little interaction with them, they are absolute down to earth people, so much of knowledge, so much of expertise, so much of insight in their field of work, down to earth and giving it to us in a way that that we would rather just grab onto it and be thankful that we had such a forum that they could come on with us. So just to give you a little insight, right? So our first speaker, I'm going to hand over the session to Mr. Emmanuel David in a few seconds, really. If I'm not even sure if any of you even took time to quickly, scroll through his LinkedIn profile, just like a few seconds of scrolling through his profile, you'd probably know who he is and what he does and what he has to his name. But all of that, right? And a lot of those companies are big, even to my knowledge. And Emmanuel Annan there is a lot that he has to him. And in all of that, there is that you will see in a few seconds the humility that comes across when he has to share his expertise. But just a few things for those of you who didn't, probably didn't even look up who you're going to be listening to. He's someone who has been, he has worked in some of the top companies, right? So Hindustan Motors and Volvo and Gujarat Gas Company, and then there's Ramki Group and a lot of it. And right now he is the director of Tata Management Training Center. So he comes with a whole load of expertise and skills and insight with him. He's an influencer, and he is a motivator in every capacity that he has held and continues to hold. And one thing that I have probably in the little research that I did is that he is also a social change agent. So in whatever way he has been involved, he has also sought to make an impact in society. So it's not just a technical, it's not just offering his knowledge and insight, but he's been doing that in a way that will make an impact in society. So we're so thankful that we could have him with us this morning. A little peek into another side of him, not professional, is that he is also a blogger, he is an author, he has interest in photography, and he is an experimental chef. So I might want to get a few tips from him on that. But it's great to see just so much fact in one person, a person with a lot of humility as well. So Emmanuel Anand, I'm going to give it over to you. Please take over, and we're looking forward to what you have to share with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Deepa. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Anand.
Yeah. Deepa, thank you for those very, very warm and kind words. I feel privileged to be part of MLC and the EMC. I want to tell you a secret. I've had early childhood memories of going to the Emmanuel Methodist Church. That was many, many years ago. And of course, I think even now it is known. At that time also, it was very well known for its singing. And Reverend Sam Kamaleshan was the pastor there. and so I used to go there. And also, I studied in the Dufton Corrie School for a few years, which is adjacent to the Emmanuel Methodist Church. So sometimes for vacation Bible school, one went there. So the very pleasant memories of EMC, and I'm so glad I'm able to again get back to EMC and be of some support and help. So thank you so much. Also want to compliment you for anticipating and responding to a need. I think if you really see, these two words are very important. Everyone is saying, "Hey, what's happening? How difficult it is." But the leaders are those who anticipate and who respond with intention. And I think you all, as a young group, have done that. It promises and augurs very well for all of us. So thank you so much for doing that. Okay, I just wanted to take you to a little bit of, Deepa, Prajit, Jonathan, also appreciate the fact that you have requested all members who registered to share a bit about themselves, also on their status, and about their expectations. I think that's a good thing to do, so that whatever we say is relevant. And that's one of the first things in being, as we say, relevant to your consumers or customers. Well, if you look at this little chart over here, it's a McKinsey chart. McKinsey did a research about how people, what are the kind of emotions people are sharing, and they kind of looked at 16 emotions. Okay, and you can see there are things like serenity, acceptance, anger, disgust, annoyance, right? So I've chosen three countries after the many countries, and you can see in this particular chart uh, which is the biggest yellow circle, right? You got China, UK, Germany, India, right? And if you can see, India has got the biggest yellow circle, and that is means joy. Despite all our situation, there is still joy. I think that's a good thing to know, and I will share these texts with you, so you can have a look and how we interact with each other. Just give you a picture. Going a little further, um, I had put all the expectations, Deepa, into what is called an intent checker, and which uses psycholinguistics to understand what the expectations are. So there are two aspects to that. One is attitude, another is emotions. I can take the next half an hour discussing this, but I will be very brief right now because we would like to speak of other things as well. First and foremost, all of you who have responded to the survey, the good news is you're more positive and very, very more positive than negative. It's 97% positive. Then also very strong. Okay. Well, and not so weak. There are some people who are weak. There's active and passive as well is there. That's just you can see in terms of the attitude. The other side is we can see there isn't anger as an emotion amongst the group has responded. I like the fact there's not much anger, there's not much fear, but there's sadness, some surprise, very little joy. So, whoever you are, wherever you are, in whatever context, I would encourage you, just look at yourself. If there's someone next to you, just smile at the person. Even that will induce some joy, right? But this is how all the matter which you put, when you put it in this intent checker, this is what is thrown up. The collectivity, this is how it is. Okay. I just want to, yeah. So, in spite of all these things, there's hope. Very quickly, there are opportunities, lots of new employment also happening in different sectors. So, we need to see whether we will fit in there or not, but there is action happening. Even now, I see that many search companies are busy filling up even senior level positions. Then if you and I did a little check, there are 16,000 new companies registered between March and now. So someone has had the thinking and the courage to start a company in spite of the COVID crisis. They're seeing opportunities. So those are some good news in spite of all the crisis. Okay, about 34 of you are either unemployed or looking for jobs out of the 87 who have responded, right? And so that's where we are in terms of a group of people who may be looking for jobs, and some of you are happily in jobs. I'm also happy that a few entrepreneurs are there, and part of the message which is there today would be applicable to you as well. Okay, I just want to take a verse from the Bible, and which is so simple and so beautiful, and I like it. And I probably got to discover this verse in my late teens or early 20s. And then with time, I kind of understood it with little more education. And I share one or two things from that. And it's just, a few adjectives, but then you see how beautiful it is. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. So I look at it, whoever you are, there are four dimensions. One is spiritual, another is intellectual, another is social, and physical. So those are the four dimensions. If we look at ourselves as an opportunity for improving ourselves and striving for excellence, I think this is a good, framework to have, right? And we see that there is excellence in all areas. There are several examples of people who are Paralympic champions, even though they've had a limitation or a challenge in terms of some ability, physical ability, they still have excelled. Okay, so I think that's the point. I would just want you to keep this in the back of your mind, that it is possible, physically possible, for a person, a human, to increase in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man, right? I, of course, acknowledge the divinity of Jesus, but I'm just telling you who you are. Jesus was a man and he did this. And that's the good news. It's possible for us also to achieve that. Okay, I thought, let me talk of some five qualities, for this post-COVID world, which are important. So first and foremost, I would say is initiative, right? And I will explain it to one or two anecdotes in my life. The time is sometime, it was sometime in 1986 or so. I was interviewing, people in a public sector who had finished their apprenticeship. So now they finished a year's apprenticeship and they would get on to technical or commercial roles. So there were about 55 plus candidates. And about 8:30 in the night, I see the CV of a person who worked as a commercial apprentice. I looked at it and I find that he has been a dispatch assistant, as you can see in this visual. So what was he doing as a dispatch assistant? He used to write down all the mails which came in. There were no emails at that time. He'll write down all the mails which came in, which department from where, and then give it to that particular department. And also, he would send out all the mails. That is his job. I looked at the CV. I told my colleague, listen, I'm going to spend a minute or two. It's already 8:30. I wouldn't waste my time with this candidate. And that's a normal default thinking. Anyway, he came and met me. The moment I saw him, he looked well dressed and had, very sharp eyes. So I felt like talking to him. Then I said, oh, you worked in the dispatch, very tired. Tell me, what have you learned? Uh, you know, and this person started telling me, he said, sir, dispatch is the most important department over here. I said, what do you mean? He said, yes. And then he went on to explain that he gets very important letters. He knows if it's a check, It has to go to the finance so that they can realize the money. If it's a legal notice, he sends it to the right people. If it's a customer complaint or some order, he knows where to send. He knew everything about that particular public sector, a large one. He knew everything what's happening there. Right? I admired his initiative, my friends. What a lot of thinking this person has put. I offered him a job. I think his name was Deepak. Uh, you know, but his memory still lives in me because I found that given whatever context he had, he still became a winner in that. Whatever may be your situation today, you might say, "Oh, this is a dead end job. This is just not okay. I don't know what to do, right? I've got a lousy boss." All that is there. But what is in you, if you show that initiative, you learn. And I was able to recognize that this man was talented and take him, give him an offer. I thought, let me leave that thought with you. Second is the quality called persistence. And that is there. There are several examples in our Bible as well. But let me share a more here and now example. There was this young man, newly married. He used to go and he wanted a job in a beautiful hotel. And he used to go and wait outside. He went and asked them for a job. They said, "No, go away. We don't have a job." So he used to wait every day, dressed in a suit, right, under the tree opposite the hotel entrance. He was waiting. He waited. And people who make fun of him, "Oh, look at that man. He's just waiting there." Right. And this man continued waiting. It may be about 4, 5, 6 weeks passed by. One day, some key person did not come was absent. So the owner said, "Oh, see that boy is there, that man? Call him. Let's see if he can do the job." And this person came in and he did a fantastic job that day. Then they asked him to come the next day and he continued working there. Eventually, he went on to become the manager of the hotel. And then the owner went into bankruptcy and he actually he pawned his wife's jewels and purchased that hotel and then went on to establish a chain of hotels, which is today called the Oberoi Hotels. Yes, this person was MS Oberoi. In the 20s, outside the Hotel Cecil in Simla, he stood in the cold, he stood in the rain, he persisted. So sometimes you might wonder, "Oh my, it's not working out." It does. More recently, uh, I was in one of the companies working, and I was working with a search consultant, a placement consultant at that time. So the MD was narrating that this person used to come and meet him almost regularly and say, "Sir, I will help you." He said, "No, no, no, I will manage myself." But then he was sincere and he was excellent in his work. So he got one break, his persistence paid off. Then eventually he went on to actually, place many people in that company. So I'm not saying it's only someone legendary like MS Oberoi needs to be persistent. Each one of you, right? If you're persistent, then you're sure a winner. Someone said persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. I want to share a little story. This is sharp thinking, being a little quick in your thinking, the wisdom aspect. So there's a story of a money lender who was a fairly mean fellow, and he was the people didn't like him very much, and he had a young son, and so the boy used to go to school, and on the way to school, he used to pass by a little hotel, a small tea shop, you can say. So the tea shop owner wanted to have fun, and then he would show this boy, you know, uh, uh, let's say a 50 paisa coin and a 2 rupee coin, and ask him, "Little boy, tell me which is bigger." and the boy used to pick the 50 paisa. And everyone used to laugh. Oh, money lender's son, he doesn't know the value of money. Here, take the 50 paisa and you go on. And this happened for several days, so much so the father got to know that everybody is making fun of his son, saying that he does not know which is bigger, right? Uh, and So he was very hurt that his son cannot identify that 2 rupees is bigger than 50 paisa. So he called his son and said, "Listen, I heard about this. Is it true?" He said, "Yes." So, "Don't you know which is bigger?" He said, "Of course, 2 rupees. But I don't understand. Why is it you pick the 50 paisa?" He says, "Dad, the day I pick the 2 rupees, the game ends. I will not be able to earn more. The day I pick the 2 rupees, the game ends." Isn't it sharp thinking on the boy? Sometimes it might look a little funny, but it makes a difference. So think about it and think differently. You not don't have to conform to pattern, right? Each of you are unique. Each one of you are unique, and you can have a special way of thinking. So think about it. Okay, and this was something also on sharp thinking. So it happened with me, and it will happen with any one of you. Here was a truck which was stuck under a tunnel, and I was behind because I needed my car to also move, and no vehicles were moving. So I went up and said, "Why don't you, reduce the air of the wheels, and you can pull it through?" So, so it's just that sometimes we struggle in certain areas. There are different ways of looking at it. I would invite you and encourage you to think differently than what is obvious, or when you don't get the same result. Even thinking in the manner you're thinking. You have to think differently. Okay. And here's another thing which is very important is interpersonal skills. Whatever you might say, this is assuming a lot of importance today. And we need to be mindful of that part of it. So this happened about a couple of years ago. I was in a busy airport and I was thinking over something and walking, and suddenly I bumped into one person. I mean, we collided with each other. It was a bit of a jolt for me. So naturally, when you collide with someone, you're not happy, you're upset, and you can say, "Mind it, don't you know where you're going?" or whatever. Anyway, that person and I just we looked at each other and smiled, and we said sorry. Then I said, "Hey, having bumped in," and I like the way he said, he said hello to me. And he said, and the way he said sorry, I like the way, very warm and pleasant. And then I somehow got into speaking to him. I said, somehow we bumped into, let's say, my name is Emmanuel, and he told me his name. And in about 5 minutes, we exchanged cards, and then I saw that he was working in a decent company, and we kind of parted to each of our departure gates. And a couple of weeks later, I was looking for a CEO in one of the companies I was working. So I told my talent person, just have a look. I've got this card. Call up and ask this person if he is interested. Just assess him, whether he's the right guy. So my colleague Ravi called him up and then spoke to him and then got a fix. He came back and said, "Amy, this guy is good. We should try him out." So then we invited him, and eventually he joined that group as a CEO. Uh, but I think the key was having some warm interpersonal skills. And this is something which is not going to, cost you a lot. Even a thing like a smile would make a difference. So think about interpersonal skills. I think it's very simple, but when we are anxious or fearful or angry, we may not be giving the best of our interpersonal, self. So it's a simple thing, doable, but you could work on that one. Finally, I would speak about communication as a skill. 2 days ago, the Supreme Court had actually censured an advocate because he did not speak. It was an online hearing. They said he was not muted, but he did not speak. We asked him thrice to speak, but he did not. Probably he was trying to wait for his senior to come online or something like that. And he's been censured, even though he's given an apology. There could be action taken on him. So you see, the highest court in the country is kind of holding people accountable for not communicating. So that's a threshold. You need to communicate. Okay. Now, having said that, when you communicate, what do you communicate? Generally, you say, I want you to do this. You pick up the phone and say, as if you're a boss, and some of you who are subordinates who get calls from your boss, all of us do get, and you hear them tell you, do this right now. And they're saying, oh my, they don't know my context. Internet connectivity is a problem, or I'm under some stress. One family member is unwell, right? So when you communicate, I would say, even to your bosses and to your colleagues and your subordinates, first communicate your context. And it is customary these days to ask people, how are you? I hope all is well at your family. You get some context inputs. Second thing is, when you're communicating, let people know why you're doing what you're doing. Because earlier, when we were in face-to-face communications and face-to-face, interactions, our face communicated the intent as well. But many of us put off our video, so we do not know the intent. So it's your responsibility to communicate context, intent, and then come to your content, right? Otherwise, there could be misunderstandings, there could be work not happening. So I would like you to think on that aspect so that you're able to communicate your context and intent. And if you're asking somebody, find out their context, find out. And I think it'll make your communication impactful and efficient. What I mean by that, people will do what you're asking them to do, as well as it will take lesser time. Okay. It happened with me once. I was wondering why one of my colleagues was not responsive, and I was very upset. And that's when I discovered this nugget. And then later that evening, in a team call, uh, we were discussing, and she said, "Listen, one of my neighbors who's in upstairs, there's been a death due to COVID, and I've been anxious about it. And here I was wanting some email to be sent. Then I said, oh my God, I've been like a bull. I've been very insensitive. And that's been the learning to actually look at context and then explain my intent. Okay, small skill, but it's going to help you. And because communication is the only way we are doing now, we are not, people are not able to see your work, right? I want to tell you another little story of what is called a fox and a hedgehog, right? This fox and the hedgehog always have fights, right? The fox is always trying to attack the hedgehog. Okay, and every time the fox attacks, what does the hedgehog do? It becomes a ball of spines, and then it's misery for the fox, right? And it tries from the side, from the front, and from the top to greater misery. So what is important to this? A gentleman called Jim Collins said this, what is called the hedgehog concept. So there you need to see what you're deeply passionate about, what you can be the best at in the world, and what drives your economic engine. If you look at all these three aspects, right? So what are you deeply passionate? What do you really believe in, right? That is one aspect. Second thing is, what can you be the best at? That's your skill and ability. So what drives the economic engine? To explain what will give you, what will pay you actually, right? So you might do some things, but it may not pay you. And that intersection, what he calls, is the hedgehog effect. Let me read what Jim Collins says. What is the best? The hedgehog concept is not a goal to be the best or a strategy to be the best or an intention to be the best. It's not a plan to be the best. It is an understanding of what you can be the best at. That distinction is absolutely crucial. My friends, each one of you, please think over and reflect on what can you be the best at. There is something unique. The moment you start comparing with A or B, then you will have a challenge. Okay, but there's an opportunity when you know what are you the best at. Okay. So also what we need to keep is integrity and honesty. And I believe there are enough inputs which are coming from the MLC, EMC, but keep that's the threshold. You are in a marathon, so you need to kind of, it's endurance. You need to have integrity and honesty. That's the threshold for you. Finally, yeah, there is a nice thing from the Max Ehrmann, who's written the Desiderata. Whether or not it's clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God. And for us, we have a God who understands us, right? And whatever your labors and aspirations in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. And when we looked at some of our emotions, we have a little bit more of sadness. So look at that. I would like you to be more happy and than sad or fearful, right? And what do you need finally? Today, you need collaboration, you need creativity and compassion. Remember these words. One, you need to say, it's not, I'm not going to do it alone. You need others to help you. And innovations are the need of the hour, and there enough written about it. Think about it. It's simple things like out of the box. I spoke of sharp thinking. And above all, God has put this heart of compassion in each one of us. We have to reach out to the least of these, and that's our option, right? Finally, I want to say that knowledge is free. Here's a list of online courses which are free. You may or may not get a certificate. If you want a certificate, you can pay for it, but otherwise, you can go through the whole thing. These courses which are free, I've culled out 5 on behavioral, 5 on managerial, and 5 on digital. So I would encourage you to, do, and as a group in the Methodist Church, do one course, all of you together. So there's a joint learning, that makes a lot of difference. And I would like you to think about that. I'll leave these with Deepa, Prajit, and Jonathan as well. So thank you so much. And I'm mindful. I think I've taken a little time. Divya, back to you. Thank you for listening in.
Thank you so much, Anand. That was great. It is great to listen to real life examples, to these anecdotes that you shared. Um, One thing is that as Emmanuel Anand was sharing, is that while crisis, right? So we're all talking about how to manage life in this crisis situation, and while crisis has that, it always has a negative ring to it, right? But I think all of us are here today because we want to we want to see and make use of this time of crisis to sort of revisit who we are, right? To sort of look back to see who can we be. Probably we have just gone with the flow over the years. Probably we have just been one of these guinea pigs that has just been running over and over with what the world has offered. But I would think, right? I would think that although crisis has a negative ring to it, it is also a time when we can use it in a positive way to revisit who we are, to revisit our purpose, to revisit. In one of the very brief conversations I had with Emmanuel Anand earlier, was he very beautifully brought out 3 points. He said, you need to know your purpose, you need to know your priorities, and you need to know the preparation that is required. And that has just stuck in my head, right? So there is a lot that we've heard, a lot that we probably have to process. And one of the key takeaways probably is that just a fraction of it is that it is important to communicate, right? And somehow I think we all have got caught up with being so closed, and I think COVID has sort of and amplify that whole thing of being closed and being in our own bubbles. But very critical to go through this time of crisis by communicating with people. Very crucial to just find someone whom we can talk to, right? Even if someone here has just lost a job, if you've been recently laid off, if you're having that fear of being laid off, or if you've suffered a job cut, a pay cut, talk to people, right? So interpersonal skills is absolutely pivotal, right? So there's probably so many in your own contacts who can help you through this time. So like Anand beautifully brought out those 5 skills, right? So we have there's interpersonal, there's sharp thinking, there's communication, there's those 5 points that you beautifully brought out. Take time to reflect, take time to think on what of these aspects, these skills that we need to work on, that we need to brush up. Communicate, reach out to people, see if people need help, see if we need help, get in touch with people, right? So that's just briefly sort of just bringing to your thought of what Emmanuel Anand had shared. I want to remind you again to please click on the link that is there for you to ask questions. If you have questions pertaining to what was just shared, any thoughts that you have, anything that you'd like for him to further, throw light on, please feel free to click on the link, send your questions in. We are looking at it real time, and our resource persons also are looking at it real time. So you're sure to get very clear cut, very precise diamond responses to that. Going on to our second speaker, Joshua Anand, I'm pretty sure like a lot of you have seen him, and personally for me, this is the first time I've actually interacted with him in putting this whole thing together. But I've seen him from afar, and I've said, "What an inspiration!" Right? And as young as he is, I'm presuming he's had quite an influence on the younger generation, quite an influence in I have seen him as being central towards bridging the richness that is there with the older generation to the thirst that is there with the younger generation. So he's sort of been that bridge in putting these two things together. And to lay out exactly, in professional, in accomplishments terms, he is the CEO of Covenant Consultants. He's also the CEO and co-founder of a school, Christwood School. He's a brain behind Lead Talks. I'm not sure how many of you have, you have probably heard of Lead Talks and have been a part of it, but he's the man behind it. Now you can see the face behind Lead Talks. He's also an author. He's a motivational speaker, and like I just mentioned, right, he's an inspiration to so many, right? You see him and you want to have an impact, you want to have an influence in the people that you interact with. So all that said, like I mentioned earlier, in my very brief interaction with him, a very passionate encourager. Like, he's like when we discussed with him, he was all out. He's like, great going, keep going. It's so nice to see what you're doing. So he encourages and he is very, very evidently living his mandate. So Anand, over to you, Anand. Friends, I again want to remind you, please go ahead to shoot your questions at Slido. Use the link, shoot your questions, and we will handle all of that once Joshua Anand is done with this session. Over to you, Anand.
All right. Thank you so much, Deepa, for the kind introduction. So nice of you to say those wonderful words. I also would like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to everybody there at EMC. Big thanks to Rajesh and Pratish as well. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's very, very difficult to follow Emmanuel Anand after his fantastic talk. So it's like, I was just thinking, it's like you go to a wedding and you get served biryani, and it's like going for a second serving of biryani, and when you ask for a second serving, the caterer is not very happy. So even though he likes to be, have a good face, but he is not very happy. So the last time I remember sitting in a wedding, which was quite early this year, I not even finished my first serving, and I remember an auntie standing behind me and calling out very far to her son and saying, come quickly, this man has finished, he is done. So I'm under tremendous pressure, I know, after Emmanuel Anand gave that fantastic insights about what we need to do, but I'll try and do justice in the 20 minutes that has been given to me. So I'm just going to start off by sharing my slide, and just give me a minute as I open it up. Here we go. So I'm going to give you practical steps. I know you got to hear a lot of insights from Mr. David about what we need to do. And I'm here just to give you some practical tips. I understand this is, a very diverse crowd that we have this morning. We have some entrepreneurs here. We have a couple of college students. We have a lot of people who are looking for a job, who are currently in a job. How can I upskill, reskill in terms of the job market? I saw a question from some couple of teachers in Slido. So we have a pretty diverse crowd. So, so just have patience if it is not relevant to you, but then I've tried to make it, as generic as possible so that it kind of caters to everybody in this group. So I have, as we all know, this COVID-19 is like once in a 100 years event. And the last people were talking about was the Great Depression, millions of job losses. And yesterday, our Honorable Finance Minister, a day before yesterday, said that the economy will contract. So this is the first official position that the government has taken, that we are looking at a recession because the economy is going to contract. So that's a bad news. But I believe that we can still recover from the bad news with hope and with God by our side. And 70,000 cases reported every day. And this morning, I was just catching up with some news, and today India recorded the highest number of cases. So we have almost 76,000 plus cases, which has been reported this morning. And what is happening is that the COVID is slowly moving from the metros, as we used to have the peaks in metros, is getting into the rural, the semi-rural, the semi-urban areas. And the next peaks are going to happen in these areas. And we all know that there's no vaccine in sight, and there is this huge socio-economic impact which is happening, what we call as the rural urban divide. We also saw what's happening with the migration workers, and the rich poor inequality gap is just getting bigger and bigger, and that's not good for the economy, because the rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer. We have no idea why the stock market is at its almost its pre-COVID levels. As you can see, on one side we see that the economy is going through a recession, and the jobs are being lost. The other side, you will actually find that the stock market is doing very well. And it's a huge question that people are having, that why is that the markets are doing very well, but actual reality on the ground is quite different. So it's a big inequality gap, a socio-economic impact that we are looking at. Moving on, I just want to talk about this morning about 7 P's, and 7 practical P's, as I uh, 7 strategies, what I call, for a successful person to manage this crisis. So I like to dwell upon each of these 7, probably give some couple of stories, and tips on actionable items on what each one of us can start with. To start with, I know Imalayan also talked about the purpose, but I believe that it's a great time to find your purpose. And as we can read, one of my favorite verses in Proverbs saying, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that really prevails. And the purpose of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insight draws from it. So I just want to encourage you this morning that it's very important to figure out what your purpose is. And purpose, if you actually go and see the definition, it talks about the reason why something exists, or it is done, or why the real aim or the intention of doing something. So it's a very good time to actually rediscover yourself. It's important that we try and figure out why we were created. And I believe that COVID is a good time when we can actually, all of us, irrespective of the age groups that we come from, actually, sit and try and find out, maybe is it time that we really want to do what we are called to do. And this big question of calling versus career, that's this huge debate which always happens. Are you really following your calling as a career, or are you having different paths? And often I believe that when God's got a certain will in your life, he 100% he gives you the skill to do that. So I don't really believe that God does not give you the skill to do what he's called you to do. But it's important to kind of figure out why, the why factor. Why did God create you? And I believe that this is one question that every one of us would need to ask. And what a great time it is, because COVID has actually brought things, it has leveled down things, and everybody is at home. And we are all, for the last 6 months, going through a lot of crisis in a way. But it's the right time in this crisis to actually start thinking, what did God really made me for? And it's a good time to actually take time off and to write down the purpose statement. Even personally in my life, all the revelations, or the real things that I were able to do with the help of God, was when I started realizing, why did God create me, and what is that I have to do, and what is the purpose statement in my life. Of course, we don't have time this morning to go in detail, but then it's very important that we actually write down the purpose statement. Now, why I put this slide as the first P for out of the 7 P's that I'm going to speak this morning, is that without getting the foundation right, there's no point in trying to build a castle, because many of us are just trying to alter, trying to ensure that the rest are good. But if our foundation is not set right, if we don't really do what God wants us to do, if our purpose is not right, I don't think that we will do well. Imagine, there's this saying which always goes saying, imagine if Sachin Tendulkar composes music and if A.R. Rahman plays cricket. And they would be disasters in what they're doing, because each one of them have to discover what they've been called for. So that is why the purpose is something which is very, very important, which you have to figure out. The second P that I want to speak about is about being positive. If you're not enthusiastic about your life this morning, nobody else is going to be. That's a hard truth. I know it's a time where a lot of us are getting into a lot of mental stress. And some of us, some of my friends I know have really got into deep depression, and they are really trying to figure out how things are going to work. But it's important to be positive. And if you're not positive, and most importantly future focused, I really like that word, future focused. It's important right now that we all look at, leave the worries away and start looking at the future, and trying to focus on what we can move on from wherever we are. So many of us are still trying to worry about what had happened in the past, worry about our current situation. But more importantly, we need to be future focused. And that is why this wonderful proverb says that it's not over till the fat lady sings. And probably the spiritual side of saying is that it's not over till God says it's over. So many of us might be sitting here and be thinking that probably this is the end of what I've been doing. But I want to encourage you this morning by saying, till God says it's over, it's not over. And God is going to do fantastic things even during this crisis. But we need to be having that faith, or be positive. And our body language plays a very, very important role. Emmanuel Anand was talking about somebody he met in the airport, and another example that he gave, that he met a person whom he didn't want to meet, but he saw the spark in the eyes. I really like that line which he used, the spark in the eyes. Our body language actually makes a huge difference, because irrespective of what is not there, it is very important to stay positive. And that is something going to really help us, help each one of us in the future. I just mentioned this, converting the crisis into an opportunity, getting over the victim mindset. We all need to get over that victim mindset, move on. We all have problems. Everybody, I see 46 people in this call. I'm certain that all of us, irrespective of, not even one of us can say we don't have problems. We all have different problems, but it's very important that we actually get over this victim mindset and convert the crisis into an opportunity. If you see the word of God, many great stories, success stories in the Bible are when crisis got turned into an opportunity and crisis got turned into a huge miracle. I mean, almost every story I read in the Bible is a person going through a crisis. You see stories about how people were sick for so many years, and then they kind of meet Jesus, and that crisis, the sickness gets into a big miracle. You take the Old Testament, I mean, so many stories which talks about warlike situation, plagues, pestilences. I mean, there are stories of hard famines in the Bible where we are talking about people not even having 1 square meal a day, where the inflation is on an all-time high, and then a miracle happens, and then God miraculously provides from them. So it is important that we are positive that God will turn this crisis into an opportunity, and we don't get into this victim mindset. I was talking about body language, and it was very interesting case study that I was reading about. I'm sure you can recognize these two gentlemen here in these slides, and one of them is Henry Agassi, who is one of the greatest champions. Many of them know about that. He's Steffi Graf's husband, and the other side, we see one of the biggest names in the tennis history is Boris Becker. And I want to share this very interesting story that when Henry Agassi and Boris Becker met, the first two times Boris Becker just trashed Agassi. And then they say that the next 9 times that Agassi and Boris Becker met, Agassi won, hands down. He was never gave a chance to Becker to beat him. And this was like, a big thing in the early 90s, late 80s, primarily because no one can, take Becker's serve. Becker's serve was impeccable. It was like, you can't really face his serve. And anybody who faces Becker's serve, will actually, say that he is the best in town those days. But Agassi used to beat him, and everybody was like, wow, Agassi, how did you manage to do that? But later on, when both these players retired, Agassi gave out the secret. It was very interesting case study, which talks about body language. And what Agassi said was, he actually noticed something in Becker's serve, which nobody else noticed. And since he lost the first two matches, he played the tapes, and he found out how Becker was serving. And he actually found out that Becker was actually moving his tongue, to which side of the court he was serving. It's a true study. Just Google and find out that if Becker was serving to the right, he will move his tongue to the right. And if he's going to serve in the center, his tongue would be in the center of his, in the mouth. And, the left side, it moves to the, if you want to serve the left side of the court, the tongue moves to the left side. And nobody knew it, including even Becker. Becker even didn't know that he had this habit. And, Agassi says that after both these guys retired, he went one day to Becker and he confessed, and he said, you know what, how I was able to read your serves was that, I was actually reading your tongue. And, and that is how I won. And Becker jokingly replied saying that, I always told my wife when I went back home saying, I don't know, somehow this guy reads me. He knows exactly what am I going to do. Little did I realize that you are actually reading my tongue. So what am I trying to tell you guys here, in this true case study of Agassi and Becker is people are actually watching us without you and I knowing it. And that could be the difference between winning and losing. It's very, very important that our body language of being positive is very, very important. The third P, I'm going to rush since I don't have much time, since we need to take some questions as well, is what we possess, what's in our hand. It's important that we identify our strengths. We need to know our weakness. It's very, very important what we are good at and what we are not good at. It's super important to identify what we possess, because once you understand your purpose, and as I just mentioned, and you're being positive about what God wants you to do, it's important to know that God gives you the skills along with the will that what he wants you to do. In other words, He gives you certain strengths, and it's important for us to identify what we are good at. We all know the story of David and Goliath. Such a common story that David knew his purpose was to win over Goliath, become the king. But he also knew his strengths. He knew that he was not called at that point of time to use the sword and fight with Goliath. So all he did was he had to take 5 pebbles from the river, and he used that as and the sling as his strength, because he knew his weakness. He was still a young lad. He could not go ahead and start using the sword. So at this point of time, again, we are all in different age groups, we are in different walks of our life. Each one of us could be different. My strength could be a weakness for somebody. Your strength could be my weakness. I mean, we're all different, and God kind of gives us all different strengths. But you need to find out what is the strength that God has given you. And when you know what is in your hand, then God does super miracles in your life. The story of when the prophet goes to meet the widow, and the prophet is just going back to a widow's house. God has got his own sense of humor. Can't he send the prophet to somebody else's home? But then the widow is planning to commit suicide, because she is kind of had the worst things happening to her life. And when she's about to commit suicide, she wants to have one good meal, and the prophet asks her, what is in your hand? And then the widow says, all I have is just some flour to make some meal and die. And then the prophet says that, go ahead and do this meal. And we all know the story. Then the miracle happens. Even that little bit of the floor, that what was in the hand of the widow, turned out to be what happened. I mean, what became the reason for the miracle for that lady's life, and for her son. And the story about Naaman, and Naaman's what was in Naaman's hand when he was suffering to the sickness was that one servant girl who was there with Naaman. And that servant girl gave her that one great idea: go and meet that prophet, and that prophet would give you healing. So today I want to tell you, you might have something in your hand which you don't know, and God will probably remind you this morning about, hey, use this, what you possess. Or it could be one great idea. Today all the startups are based on one idea about a problem and what is the solution for that problem. Just look at the story of Naaman. We don't have time this morning, but probably we can do a case study later. Naaman had this servant girl who just gave Naaman one idea. That idea was, hey, listen, Naaman, there is a prophet in Israel. Why don't you go and meet him? You will get a healing. That's an idea, according to me. And Naaman got hold of that idea, and it turned out to be a reason why Naaman was blessed later. And it's very interesting that Jesus in the Bible actually talks about these two stories. If you actually read through the Gospels, he actually talks about both the widow of the Rephath and also the Naaman story. Even if Jesus is mentioning something, I think it's super important. So I want you all to understand that, it is that idea or whatever you have in your hand, you need to identify what you possess is very, very important. So, submit yourself 100%. As I said, once you know what's in your hand, go for it. No half-hearted measures. Start small. I remember 15 years before, there was, when I started, we just started small. That's it. You don't have to start something big. And over the years, God will bless that, make it big, because often there are some businessmen in the group, and maybe many of you can start a business. And if you're thinking that, listen, I don't have these huge money or finances or any kind of a background, doesn't really matter. Just start small. You could start with just one person, and or whatever you have, and I'm sure God is going to bless that. So start something, but give it your 100%. No half-hearted measures. As I just mentioned, if you have discovered that this is your purpose in your life, and if you know that these are the strengths that God has given you, this is what you possess, then go for it 100%. Whether it's small or or big, it doesn't matter, but just go for it. Build your personal brand. I think these days it's important that your personal brand is also built, because you are the biggest brand for yourself. Nobody else can sell for you, and it's important that you build your personal brand. Use social media effectively. I see this often. I'm sure almost all of us here are in different groups. different social mediums, and it's very important that we use it, positively. I mean, you can use it to sell, you can use it to build your personal brand, you can use that to build contacts, connects. You can do that. I mean, not for anything else, because anything you can be using it for both positive and negative. And get like-minded people to spread the word. Go digital. It's very, very important. I want to recommend this app called Class Plus. Now, I saw a question already in Slido which talked about about teachers who are I saw this question about teachers who have lost their jobs and what they need to do. I want to I want to take a couple of minutes here to answer. There is this wonderful app called Class Plus which you should use. What Class Plus does is that it creates an infrastructure for you where the teachers can actually connect with the students, and you can use this infrastructure and teach whatever you want. So if you're a teacher of, say, mathematics, all you need to do is just get people, and you can use Class Plus in the comfort of your home, connect with students, and the students can do their homework, get send the stuff back using Class Plus. I mean, so you don't need anything else. The infrastructure is available. All you need to do is, you can even start with one student and start making money if you're good at whatever. So if you're a music teacher, for example, if you know piano or if you know guitar, you can do your piano and guitar classes using Class Plus, and that could generate revenue for you. So you don't have to go in the traditional model. Okay, I'm a teacher, I lost my job, I don't know which other school or college is going to hire me back. Instead of looking at the traditional model, start looking at how can I make revenue with the gift what God has given me. And if God has given me the gift of music, for example, all you'll have to do is use the social media, use your networks, just tell them I'm going to start music classes. Even if you get one student, I'm sure that's still giving you a revenue. More than revenue, it's keeping you occupied. It kind of gives you a purpose in life. So be generous. I mean, what I mean by be generous is be willing to share, be willing to uh, you know uh, uh, be open about sharing your talent, because generosity many a times is not just money. Often we think generosity means money. What is that money I can give somebody? But generosity is not just money. It could also be your time, it could be your talent, it could be many other things that you can actually share um, um, to others. I got a slide on the startups. I was just mentioning, I don't know, out of these 47 people here, there could be even one person here who could end up, starting something which could probably go a big way, because the prediction is by 2025, the number of startups in India is expected to cross 100,000. And this will create 3.25 million jobs. And the funding for startups is likely to increase to $150 billion. And 34 startups in India become unicorns. And you know what a unicorn is? A unicorn is whenever there's a startup with a market valuation of 7,000 crores and above, that's called a unicorn. And so far in India, 55,000 startups have happened. So you can make it 55,001 today. If there is somebody here who says, okay, why should I go in the traditional model of asking someone to give me a job? I've got this great idea and I'm going to start my own startup, and I'm certain that God is going to bless that, provided you have that calling. Another tennis story, a very interesting story, is that these four guys is what they call as the big four. Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Andy Murray. Very interesting. From the year 1999, if you're going to calculate market share from a business standpoint, 75% market share is held by these guys. In other words, 60 out of 80 Grand Slams in the last 20 years, that is from the year 1999 onwards, they have been winning 75% market share. They literally wiped out competition. In other words, they know what they're good at. And they say they kind of lost a generation in the middle because these guys are refusing to give up. So age is just a number. Roger Federer is just turning 40, just celebrated his birthday this month. And there are many people sitting here. I saw one question in Slido about a person in the 50s, or, if I just read it right, age is just a number. I mean, look at Roger Federer, 40 years is still winning Grand Slams, or at least playing Grand Slams, or being part of the 75% market share that I'm talking about. All we need to do is just, understand what God has given us. I know I've just got 5 more minutes, so let me run through. Sorry if I'm exceeding my time. The next P I want to talk about is the plan. Prepare a clear and simple strategy. which is relevant to yourself or relevant to your business. Have a plan. Once you decided, okay, this is my purpose, I'm going to be positive about it, this is what I possess, God has given me these talents I'm going to use. Get yourself a plan. Get yourself a very simple strategy, saying that this is what I'm going to do, this is my vision, this is my mission, this is why I exist, this is what I want to do. And get yourself a specific goal. What I mean by a specific goal is, like, it's important that you get both your what I mean, a short-term goal as and as well as a long-term goal. It's very important that we get both together, because sometimes, today they say in this fast-paced life that we have, we can't even think about beyond 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Get yourself a short-term goal, get actionable items. When this COVID crisis stuck, all of us here, especially in the business that I do, we didn't have any great, long-term plan. We of course we had long-term plans. This is what we want to be in 2023, 25, and 2030 and all. And we said we'll park it for a moment. All we need to do right now is, how do we handle 2020? So we decided we will put in just a 6 months plan, and we will not go beyond that. And we have set ourselves actionable items, a to-do list. This is something that we'll have to do. So don't go beyond a couple of years, because it's not going to take you anywhere. Of course, it's good to have these mission statements, but just get short-term goals, get a plan, and I'm certain that you will do well. I'm going to rush. I know I've got a couple of more minutes extension. Thank you. You guys are generous. The fifth P that I'm talking about is empowering yourself. Or preparation, as Emmanuel Anand was talking about. Empower. What do you mean by empowering? Is you need to get yourself equipped. Learn new things as you go on this journey. Walking the extra mile. Learn new things. This great debate which is happening about. The 3 language formula in Tamil Nadu, we are all victims of that. So I can't speak one line in Hindi, even though I pretend that I know Hindi when my Hindi North Indian friends keep calling me, but I can't talk one line in Hindi. So we are all from, if you used to watch that Bakiraj movie, that's the Hindi that we know. That's the only one line that we all get to hear, thanks to that, that comedy scene which comes from the Bakiraj movie. But then, beyond that, none of us know any Hindi. So I thought one of the things that I can do during this COVID is get a Hindi teacher and start learning Hindi. So that, when I talk to my clients in North India, at least I can kind of rattle off some couple of lines beyond the acha and beyond the G and, all the words that we use. I thought maybe 2-3 more extra lines would probably, break the ice and kind of give the comfort. So I'm learning, Hindi. And I've also ensured my kids are learning Hindi, because it's very important that, even though it need not be forced, I'm here. I believe that no language should be forced on anybody. I am definitely a believer of that it's important that we choose to learn what we want to learn. But then you can learn on your own as an initiative, that if you wish to learn, you can learn. And I wish to learn because I've never learned that, and I want to learn that. So learn, some of my friends are learning digital marketing. I met a very interesting friend of mine, who is learning digital marketing course. So he's going through this course, and he's kind of wanting to understand how to brand himself better, brand his business better. He's going through this lovely course of digital marketing. Just go through it. And again, Mr. David had kind of given you a list of courses that you can do. Check out these apps, Simply Learn, Coursera. They give you different areas where you can actually log in and learn. I strongly recommend today that you all take time off, maybe the second half of the day after you eat your we're learning nearing lunchtime, but take some time off in the second half. Go through these websites, Simply Learn, Coursera, and there are many more, and look for what are the courses that I can learn. And it's not very costly, and end of the day, it's going to help you. So so read books, watch videos, look for new ideas. In other words, empower yourself. So it's very, very important that you should be in a position to prepare. I'll quickly, I'll skip this slide. There are many other companies. I just wanted to talk about a few here, but I don't have time. But, just try and reskill yourself. In other words, reskill, upskill yourself. Just go through all these names that I just mentioned. These are all, again, tech learning, edtech firms. White Hat Junior is in the news recently because $300 million Byju's has bought over White Hat. And White Hat is a company where they teach young people how to code. So if any one of you here want to get into software coding, can you believe 10-year-old, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds doing coding? You can even introduce your kids to it. Just go to this White Hat Junior, recently bought over by Byju's, and many other companies like Tinker, and Coding Ninja. They all teach our younger kids how to code, and I'm sure as older kids, we could learn coding as well if you really feel that, oh, I should have got into programming. I mean, I'm just saying, if you want to do that, there are many other opportunities. So you would see the picture here. I'm not sure how many of you would be able to guess this guy. This guy went to the extra mile. Again, cutting the long story short, he was a drug addict. His father was an alcoholic, but he had to go through a rehab. And his first big break in his life was given for the role that he had to play as Charlie Chaplin. And for that role, he had to learn to play the violin and tennis left-handed. So, imagine playing, learning to play violin itself is difficult, but you try and learn to play violin left-handed, you try to play tennis left-handed. But he did that, went the extra mile, and so that he can audition himself and play the role of Charlie Chaplin. No guesses for guessing who this guy is. And this guy is the Iron Man. And my kids love this guy. And today, we also heard the tragic news of Chadwick Boseman, dying out of cancer. So the Black Panther, the role that he played, he's gone. So life is very uncertain, but it's very important that we really go the extra mile in terms of what we really need to do. So I know many of you are working from home. Some rules here: set yourself work from home rules. Build your digital infrastructure. Set yourself rules. In other words, sometimes we overwork. We tend to overwork. Because at home earlier it used to be an office, it used to be that 9 to 6, or maybe we stretch, we come back and we have our family time. So today what happens is that that family of work divide is kind of going away, because sometimes I'm a entrepreneur. We all expect sometimes in the back of my mind, okay, since we are at home, we can work anytime. Or sometimes even our bosses would expect us, okay, anyway, there is this bridge that, okay, this person is at home and he's probably not working. We kind of have that in the back of our mind, a typical mindset. So it's important that we set ourselves rules by saying, this is my time. Maybe set yourself a separate place in your home that nobody will disturb you, and also set yourself a time saying, okay, beyond this hour I'm not going to work. Tell your bosses, I will do my best, that I'm going to give my best, but beyond this, that's the cutoff limit, or whatever the curfew limit that we call. Set yourself rules, because it is very important that you kind of have the the work and the family time that you can split. My 6P is the people network. It's very important that I'm going to finish in 4 minutes. I'm really sorry. The people network is that you're the sum of all the people you interact with. And some many, there's a very famous line which says that your network actually defines your net worth. So your net worth is actually not the money, the bank balance, but the people that you know. So it's very important that you have the right people surrounding you, because you're the sum of all the people you interact with. You interact with 4 cartoons, you will be a cartoon, because that's how you're going to end up with. So you have to choose whom you're going to be with. Have mentors. I have couple of mentors in my life, and I constantly engage with them, try and exchange ideas, get inspired, validate, what I need to do next. I have different mentors. As a matter of fact, in different areas of my life, I have mentors. And, so that, what I call as specialists who could guide me. I also mentor a few youngsters. I don't mentor a lot because, thanks to time and also the willingness of the person to be mentored. So it's very important that you have this nice mentors in your life where you can ask for help, be truthful. Guys, it's very important that we don't, we are very vulnerable. Many a time we put this false pretext that all is well, everything is great in our life. And someone asks, how are you? And, 99% will say, I'm great. We might not be great. I think it's very important that we are vulnerable. Yeah, it's good to be positive, as I just mentioned, but it's also important to be truthful. It's very important to ask for help. We had this Sushant Singh episode where people commit suicide, or still at least the case is going on. We're not sure what happened, but ask for help. If you're going through stress, if you're going to mental depression, please lift up the phone, whoever you're comfortable with, ask for help. The last P that I'm talking about is your personal lifestyle choices. Very important that you cut cost in your life. Try and be lean and agile so that you can build your cash reserves. Have a budget in your personal spending. I have a budget. We have a budget in our family. We don't go beyond that. It's been more than 6 months that we ordered from Swiggy, or not that we are in fear of any COVID a virus coming in, but then we just don't want to spend that extra money. So we make, I'm a big fan of KFC and all the other restaurants, but then now Susan makes KFC now at home. So it's no more the KFC that we buy, even though the original KFC taste might not be there. I just realized Susan just walked into the room, so I'm going to go into a time of fasting, I guess, for the next few days, thanks to my comment. But the point I'm trying to make is that even though the taste might not be the same, you're saving a lot of cost, and that is going to really help you in a long run. This GSL, again, I don't have time to explain that, but teach your children. At least in my family, if I earn 100 rupees, I split that into 33% each. My first 33% of what I earn goes to give. In giving, the next 33% is going into saving, and the last 33% is what I live with. And what we actually find out now is people actually do the opposite. Whatever money we earn, we first live with it, and whatever is left in our live, we try and save it, and whatever is left beyond saving is what we try to give. We need to reverse the order. We need to ensure that we have this GSL. This no debt is something that we need to really have another session altogether. I love to do another session where how to come out of debt. It's very, very important that all of us would have to come out of debt. And if you're carrying debts, there are certain debts which are okay. I'm sure Glenn can talk much better about it, but it's a separate session altogether. So make the right personal lifestyle choices. So I'm going to repeat the 7 strategies: purpose, being positive, what you possess, have a plan, empower yourself, have the right people connects, and make the right personal lifestyle choices. I'm going to give you one bonus P, and that bonus P for all of you being good listeners is that prayer. With all this having said and done, please do believe in prayer, claim his word, claim his promise, and convert your fear into faith. So you can reach me again. Thank you for the opportunity to Rajesh, Ranjit, Deepa, Pratik, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm best reachable in my mail, and you can connect with me in this mail ID. So thank you again. I'll be happy to answer questions after. If any questions, if Emmanuel Anand chooses to give me, I will answer, because he's the expert here. So we'd love to take some questions. Thank you very much for the time. God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Anand. That was very, very insightful, exciting to hear all that you had to share with us. Friends, we have about half an hour to go through with our Q&A session. Anand, we're sorry that, we really wish we had a lot more time, that we could have given you probably a session just for yourself, and Emmanuel and later just him alone. But thank you so much for that. Friends, I just want to quickly remind you, we have been seeing your questions coming in. Please keep them coming in. So there's been very clear overlap in both in what both of them have shared in terms of using this time of crisis to rediscover yourself, rediscover your purpose, who you are, why you want to do what you're doing, and knowing that there is a God in all of this, and He is going to take us through this time of crisis. So thank you so much once again, Emmanuel Anand and Joshua Anand. We're going to head straight on to the Q&A. I'm going to request Ranjit to take it on in moderating the questions for us. Please keep your questions coming in. Use the Slido link which is there. You can maintain anonymity if you choose to, but I think we're just going to give it straight on to the questions. I want to encourage and request you to post as much as you can, because all that we've learned, there's going to be meaning and there's going to be application only if we're able to tie it down to what we are personally experiencing. So keep the questions coming in, and over to Ranjit to take it on from here.
Yeah, thank you, Deepa. Just before we start, again, thank you, Joshua and Emmanuel Anand for this wonderful session. I have been personally blessed. So let's dive in quickly to the question answer sessions. The first question that we have, I think few Joshua already covered during his sessions, but for the benefit of everybody here, we'll go over it. The first question is: if there is a better job opportunity, is it advisable to change jobs in the current situation? What are the risks involved? Joshua, I think first you can answer it, and also we can have Emmanuel and then share his thoughts as well.
Yeah, so to the question of changing jobs, since I come from a recruitment background, I continue to see people shifting jobs. Mr. David had also put that slide where he talked about different companies are still hiring even senior level people. So it actually depends again about what you call as a better job opportunity. So you need to really define what is a better job opportunity, whether it is a career move, whether it's a move in the role, or whether it's a better brand that you want to choose, or in terms of compensation. So you need to define that. So once you define what is that you want to achieve out of that move, then you can decide whether you have to move that job or not. And you need to research, because I can't give a generic answer about yes or no here, because you need to really go into the history about what the company that you are going to move, how do they treat their people. Because COVID is actually turning out to be a great parameter on how people actually go ahead and treat their employees. Have they treated their employees well? Have they sent out people, or have they still continue to treat them well and ensure that they are? So this is one time which is a fantastic time to actually understand whether a company treats its people well. And as I just said, first of all, you need to understand why you're looking for a change. And if it fits you in the new job, why not? You can still go ahead and take that new job. If it doesn't fit you, just hang on till a better job fits you on what you are looking at. So it's a very personal answer to this question. You're the best person to decide. There's no right or wrong answers here.
Thank you, Joshua. Emmanuel Anand, if you could share some thoughts as well.
Thanks, Joshua. I think very well said. I'll just look at it a little differently. First and foremost, see what are the factors which is making you look for a change. Is it a push factor or a pull factor? Push factor usually is you're not able to learn something more, or you're not having the best of relationship with your boss. Those could be push factors. Pull is something very attractive. There could be a better compensation. There could be better learning opportunity. I think that's where you need to see. If it's a push factor, then you do not know. You may land up in a similar context later, right? Therefore, it's not advisable to look at merely a job change without understanding what is driving you there, right? Having said that, what have I looked at whenever I change a job? My first consideration was not economic. It was not salary. First and foremost was I look at three lenses. One is the professional lens, another is the cultural lens, and third is the economic lens. And any job opportunity, can I learn something there? Can I contribute? Is the professional lens. Next is the cultural lens. Is can I have a cup of tea or coffee? Share something about myself with co-workers, or do I have to eat alone? Right? If you feel that it is so, then there's a challenge. Then finally the economic one. And as long as you're being fairly compensated and there's a fair compensation, it is okay. Don't try to look for that 10%, 20% kind of a thing increase. But most often than not, most people look only at the salary, and they do not want to take a cut in salary if professional or cultural are better. So your employment is a combination of these three. That's one. That's essentially a diagnostic for you. Joshua is very right. You have to ascertain for yourself. Final risk factor, if you can say, in this COVID terms, better to be with someone you have a relationship, because the remote working, it will take you a long while to establish that rapport relationship and show your contribution. So make things work in the current context. Don't jump the ship unless you're really in a very hostile situation.
Thank you, Anna. I think those are great suggestions, guys. I'm not sure if you are following it, but these are just great suggestions, that they are giving. So, uh, quickly moving on to the next question. What are the signs that you're in a comfort zone and not growing in a job? I think, Emmanuel, Anna, if you can start first, and Joshua, if you have a point to add, you can add.
No, I think in my previous thing I mentioned, when you look at a role, you look at it from the professional part of it. Are you able to actually, contribute? So if that learning is not there, there is a situation. See, I would have interviewed several hundreds, thousands of people in my career, especially people who are working already. When I asked them, what's the reason for your job change, the top two reasons were that I'm not learning adequately. Second thing was saying I'm not getting on well with my boss, right? The third, which is much lower down, was due to some personal factors. But nobody in an interview, and I believe people tell the truth in an interview, mostly said we were leaving because it's a bad salary. Nobody mentions it, right? So if you're, I flip it around. In case you're not learning something and you're not having a great relationship with your co-workers and your boss, look at it, but try to make things work. But mostly it is growth, and the decision making you can do, the contribution you can give is other three factors.
Yeah, great thoughts there. I don't think much to add, but I'll probably use one, additional line here where, how recognized you are in terms of, what you're doing. So recognition will also play a big way, because if you're contributing, you're certain to grow and you will certainly be recognized. So I'll probably add that line there. I think the rest was covered well by Anand.
Okay, thank you so much. So we actually overshot a little bit, but we are going to go a little slow on the questions, even though we've overshot on time, just to benefit those who are listening. So I think Josh, you answered this question in your presentation. What would the future of younger generations be? What would be the skills that they would require? I think you touched upon it a little bit. So I'll probably ask Emmanuel Anna if there are any points to add to it.
Let me just share. Generally, we look at, of course, there's a lot of future for younger generations, right? After the iPhone came into being, there were about 700,000 or more new jobs created just because of the apps development which happened. Okay. Generally, traditionally, we were looking at STEM, right? We took at science, technology, engineering, and maths, right? And I just want to suggest that we should look at esteem, right? In terms of skill, right? There will be science, technology, engineering, maths. The way I put it is, we start with, of course, we start with empathy, right? Then esteem, then science, technology, engineering, and the next E is ethics, right? And maths. So I think for those are the things you add empathy and ethics into whatever you're studying, then I believe you're equipped for the future. And it holds good not only for young people, but for all people.
Thank you, Anna. Josh, do you have a point to add, or can we move on to the next?
Nothing much, Rajit. I covered it all in my slides. Yeah.
Okay, the next question, I think I'm going to club a couple of questions here. How to hunt for a job in 50s? And there was a question again with somebody who's over 40, and what are the suggestions for them to look for a job? So Josh, if you can start, and then we can hear from Manuel as well.
See, again, I mean, age is just a number, because at the end of the day, it's what you bring to the table. So as I was just talking, you need to know what your strengths are. And if your strengths, if you are able to identify what you can bring to the table, then you can actually call the shot. So even if you are in your 50s, 40s, you can always bring value. Even not as a, today it's no more even full term, for a full-time recruitment. So it's about, you can join as consultants, where you kind of take up a particular project, and more companies are happy to hire people as consultants and say, okay, this is a project I'm going to give you, and this is what I want you to do. And it's also a great time to actually go solo, or kind of start your own firm in a, not in a, even in a small way, and see how things lead. So it's all depends on what is that one skill that you have that you can sell. Unless you find that out, it's going to, you're not ever going to get an answer for that.
Emmanuel, and if, yeah.
Yeah. I think, thanks, Josh. I think that was well said. Just a little factor. Why are you looking for a job in the 50s? Is a question you need to ask yourself. And if you ask yourself the question and you're willing to look at this mirror, and you must look at Leonardo da Vinci has an eight-sided mirror where a man sits, if he's inside, can see all aspects of himself endless times. But you must look at yourself also endless times when you are looking for a job at 50, I would say. And it's possible. So now understand, reflect is the first thing. What went well, what did not go well. Many a time we are a victim of habits. We have our own blind spots and biases. And that is what is perhaps making us look for a different job. We are derailing somewhere. We are not doing well enough. So if you have to change some attitudes and habits, be willing to change. That's one thing. Options before you at 50, I think there are three. One is, of course, employment, another job. Another is expertise, being a consultant, and today in gig economy, it's possible to do that. Third is, of course, being an entrepreneur. Even Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's, started at 56. So look at it from not just a job, it's either employment, expertise, or entrepreneurship.
Just
Okay,
wanted to add
yes,
KFC.
please. Yes.
Just wanted to
KFC.
add, KFC Colonel Sanders started at 63. So if that could be your extra motivation.
Yeah, Josh, you keep bringing up KFC, and it's a good point. Yeah.
It's getting lunchtime and I'm not tasting it for 6 months.
Got it. Got it. I think both of you have answered the next question. So for the scarcity of time, I'll just read that and just answer what you've said and move on. What are the immediate options available for people who have been laid off during this pandemic at various levels? So both of you, I think, touched upon reskilling and upskilling with the courses that you said. So we'll move on.
Just let me add one point over there.
Yes, yes, Anu.
There was a young lady, who was given a placement, but the company didn't offer her. This was 2 years ago. Then she was saying, "I want to look for a job. Look for a job." I said, "Are you willing to take an unpaid job?" For a moment, she was shocked. Then she said, "Okay." I spoke to somebody. Will you take this lady as unpaid? And to cut the long story short, she worked only for about 15-20 days as an unpaid. They saw she's talented, got her a temporary role, and from there she got a permanent role in that same institution, then went on to IIM Ahmedabad as a research assistant. Today she's in the US. So sometimes be willing to do an unpaid thing also. Volunteer, help out.
Thank you, Anand. That was a good point. So we'll go to the next question. Often not feeling challenged at work. For how long is this acceptable? When should I think of changing jobs? Joshua, if you can start.
Yeah, so again, as I just mentioned, there are a lot of things which you need to really ask, how much you're contributing, how much are you recognized, how much are you learning, and the current role is it helping you in the future, keeping the future in mind. So there are a lot of questions which again quite personal, Ranjit, because it's different for different people. So the best person to make that choice is the individual himself, herself. But then the questions again you need to ask is, again, as Mr. David was talking about, the push-pull factor, also in terms of what is that you're really contributing at the end of the day, and whether it is being recognized, and whether you're learning from it, whether it helps you for your future. One question, rather one input that I always give anybody who asks me this question is, does it really are you growing in your career? that is one question we need to always ask ourselves. Is there career growth in the current job that you're doing? And if your answer is a yes, that I'm growing, you should not be thinking about moving anywhere. But if you're not growing, if you're getting stagnated, then you might want to look at different other options.
Yeah, thank you. Emmanuel, do you have a point to add, or
Yeah,
can we?
I got a
Okay,
point.
okay.
I think all those who asked, and also three of them have upvoted this. Just I know for gentlemen who have spoken of 8 P's, right, which have to be followed. I think you must just listen to those 8 P's which Joshua said, and starting with prayer first. I think that makes a fundamental difference. Prayer and purpose and positivity. I think Joshua has put it very well. Please follow that. I just reinforce.
Thank you, thank you. The next question is, I think Joshua covered it in his presentation. Uh, those who are in the teaching profession for more than 2 decades now uh, are facing crisis due to layoff. What would be the solution for such professionals? I think Joshua gave the example of Class Plus and others. Emmanuel Anna, if you have a point to add, we can listen to you.
No, I think I'll go with what Joshua said. It's a learning for me also.
Okay, great, great. Okay, guys, if you have questions, if you're not very comfortable with Slido, you can also put it in the chat box that is available. So we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. We have 10 to 15 minutes more. Okay, moving on to the next question. Some options for work from home jobs. Joshua, do you have any suggestions?
Anything which you can do digitally, it's possible from work from home. Today everybody is working from home, 90%, except for if you work in a restaurant or a hotel, and certain jobs you really can't do work from home. But then today everything is happening, so you can do whatever you want from work from home, as long as there's a digital side for it.
Yeah, thank you. Emmanuel, do you have a point to add?
Yeah, I think, see, work from home, let's look at it differently. Wherever there is information, that's what is traditionally in the work from home. But I'd say let's flip it a little bit. We have an opportunity to revisit the cottage industry system. We've had cottage industries in the past, and that's been the genesis of the industrial revolution. So we can possibly, have that inflection, confluence with the digital and cottage industries. So you do something of high quality at your home. It could be a lunch, it could be anything else, could be whatever product. Then you have, you know, Ubers and Dunzos and all who pick up and deliver. Those kind of synergies are possible. So you can do whatever is your trade at your home, and you still have a market. So, but then you need to also be a little digitally savvy, and it's not very difficult. Even on a simple WhatsApp, people are coming. I've advised a carpenter to, advertise about his skills on a WhatsApp, so that people can call him, and then he can go and do whatever roles he can. So this is a great opportunity, people. Don't get constrained only by your qualifications, but look at your qualities.
Thank you, Anand.
The
I
new
think,
trend,
yes,
sorry,
Joshua.
the new trend which is also happening on the baking front, as Anand just mentioned. So I know a lot of ladies in the webinar today. You can actually make a career in on the baking front. I live in an apartment, and every other day I see a WhatsApp message saying somebody is doing something, and I don't see any recession, at least in the apartment that I live in, especially when it comes to good food. So if you can make some good food, uh, that's a good start.
I think you're absolutely right. Baking and cooking, I keep getting WhatsApp status and makes me feel hungry every time I see that. So, yeah, moving on. How often do you think working beyond office hours is acceptable without compensation? I think Josh rightly pointed out that we have to have a boundary, and we have to talk to our bosses openly about it. But Emmanuel Anand, if you have a point to add, we can listen to you.
I have a counterpoint.
Okay.
I don't like this question actually. I'm sorry, and I may be a little provocative. I think we are all called to excellence, right? I think that's the first thing, and I spoke about how Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. For him, is the epitome of excellence, first and foremost. Second thing is, is our job or working to invest, to put time, or to be responsible for outcomes, to be accountable for outcomes. If you're accountable for outcomes, then it depends on your skill. If you're deficient in skill, you're going to invest more time. But there are people who put in less time. So then increase your skill or your motivation, right? So I think this is not the question to ask. Because what am I doing? Am I rightly skilled? If you don't know, please ask. And Josh very rightly said, ask for help, seek for help. That's the thing. So little provocative, but at the same time, what outcomes are you accountable for? If you fulfill them, fine. Then the time is a different consequence.
Can I just add to, I mean, well said, because I am also a person who absolutely believes in excellence. Even the Lead Talks program that we have, we believe in the pipe of, the principle of purpose, integrity, and excellence. But I understand this. I'm assuming the person who wrote this question would probably uh, be probably having a bad boss who, instead of, I mean, in spite of the good work done, I'm certain there are some bad apples always who still insist on the time factor and not the result. So on on those fronts, yeah, I think you still will have to take a call and draw your line. But yeah, absolutely agree with what Emmanuel and talked about. I guess no second doubts about that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm planning to get into the training industry, but I feel there is so much noise in the digital space already. What are the options which I have? I think both of you covered, with the courses that you gave on, and Joshua also said how, it's time for us to look into digital and see how training works there. If you have a point to add, I think we can look at it, but if not, I think we can.
It has to be personalized. Only if it is
Correct.
personalized, you're going to stand out. Otherwise, you're going to be, it does a lot of noise, as you this question is rightly raising the issue here. So there are some apps which are actually allotting mentors. So I was talking about mentors mentee relationship. There are some apps which are actually assigning you one particular mentor who can actually walk through your journey. So if you can make it personal, it's a good space to be in. Otherwise, it's just a rat race unless you have something extra that you want to give.
Got it. Emmanuel, Anna, you have a point to add, or can we move on?
I think it's well covered. I spoke of the fox and the hedgehog
Right.
concept. What is it you can be best at? See, if you have to be distinctive, and I have many people coming wanting to, provide training, and so I have the opportunity to work with some of the different people, the best in the world. What works is, I will say, in addition to the content, it's the empathy and the experience. Okay, so if you are in that space, perhaps it works. But again, if you're speaking data analytics, it's a different aspect. So we can actually, Ranjit, spend a lot of time discussing this. Can be open for another 1 hour discussion only on this. But more often, what is it you're best at, and what's the need of the people? It is not that, I have something good and I want to tell someone that they may not be requirement.
Got it. Got it. I think the next two questions we will probably skip on because I think you've answered those in the previous one. When should you start thinking of changing jobs? I think the first question was similar. I think you answered that. The next question is, how would you deal with working in an organization where your boss doesn't have uh, a good work-life balance and you believe life is not work alone? Probably I'll have Josh address it and then have Emmanuel and add some points to it.
Yeah, I think we just discussed that. Yeah, but I think you need to get into again the the basic problem here. What I see is that the on both sides, both from the employer side and the employee side, there has to be a partnership, if I have to use that word. From an employee side, you need to understand what a employer is going through, what a company's ideals are, what they expect from you. And from an employer side, you need to identify and the strengths of each of the team which is working with you, and get them on board. So it's like a team. So what I see in this question, whoever has written this, is that that's the missing piece here. So unless we sort out the partnership, then it kind of becomes boring. So I always ask or tell my people, on a Monday morning, if you're not excited to go to work, so rather today we need to rephrase, if you're not excited to start work from home, there's something wrong with what you're doing.
Yes. Emmanuel, Anna, you have a point to add?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There are people who are difficult. I understand that part of it. So very often, most of us, because of our own context, it could be economic, it could be whatever it is, or reputation, you don't want to risk and rock the boat. And then speaking to the boss, most of us also find it difficult, depending how what's the hierarchy level. I suggest a couple of things. One is to perhaps over here, the boss is not a good planner, right? He's not detail oriented, or he's got a higher workload. Just no. So if you can actually work out a blueprint and say these are the things which are going to happen in the next 1 week, right? Give him a little list of what to anticipate, rather than wait for the thing to become a problem. So you're doing a little homework. You have to do it once or twice. Also seek for a conversation. Also good to share your plans. That my mother's 60th birthday is on the 5th of September, right? And I have to handle something, or my parents' wedding anniversary, or you know the wife is expecting. You just tell it a little in advance, rather than give them only 1 day notice or something, and you take off. It's a very genuine reason you need to take off. Suppose there is someone you're caring for. I think a little bit of preparation, anticipation will help. Next thing is, very often we will tell that I can't do this, and we'll give a yes no answer. Consider doing a scenario based thing. And if you have anticipated, you say, "So what if, sir, if this were to happen, what should be our response? What if?" And then you are making him imagine and think. I think that's a nice way to manage your box. Sometimes you may be adequately equipped with the intellect and intelligence and the vision. Use it, right? But use it with humility. That's the more important thing. Very often we tend to kind of be arrogant about what we know. No? So, but maybe the boss really needs some help. He's not good in planning, so help him out. Give him some checklists, give him some plans, and what could be the crisis points. That's
Yeah,
it.
I think well addressed. I think more often than not, the employees keep silent. I think they should start to asking those valid points that they have. So yeah,
And just,
Sam,
just,
I
just to add, sometimes the boss's boss may ask something, then be, diplomatic and say, boss, these are the things I've done already. Or these are the issues I foresee happening. Then, they say, hey, here's a smart fellow, right? So don't be shy.
got it. Thank you, Anand. We have a good question here, I think, but I think Josh already covered that in his presentation. Do you think it's a good time to join a startup at this time? I think you brought out the points of how many startups are coming up and what are the status, and also you said you'll have to do a research about companies. But Josh, if you can, because it's a startup, if you can throw some light on it, that'll be great.
Again, it depends on whether you want to be a king in a small kingdom, or you want to be a captain in a big kingdom. I mean, your personality, what really suits you the best. So again, even startups are super different. They are like, there are some startups, whether they're funded, some of the startups are no more startups, because as I just mentioned, they're unicorns, and they have become, really big than any other, company. So do your research, find out who the founders are. Are they just doing it for how passionate they are? Are they long term? Compare it with a regular company. So it's a personal choice, and pray about it at the end of the day, because if you have peace, just go ahead and do what God wants you to do.
Great. I think we have
May,
overshot
may, I just,
time.
may I just add to that?
Yes, Anand.
I
Yes,
think what
Anand.
Joshua says is correct. But in a startup, I just want you to do one particular aspect, right? First and foremost, you must know what your values are, your own personal values, and try and see if it matches with the values of the founder. Okay, because you're going to join the startup listening to your mind, a great idea, I'm going to do it. But where you're going to conflict and get into difficulties is because of values, right? At this point in time, everything is okay. And then after 1.5 years, you say, I never knew this guy has turned out so bad. Or I never knew he's asked me to do things I didn't want to do, right? But actually, you've not done the homework on that, right? Wherever there's a value alignment, right, things happen. Okay, but if there's a dissonance, then you will very soon move out of that place. So, in addition to all other aspects in terms of financial, intellectual, viable, fantastic business idea, if the values don't match, and particularly for those of us, I'm sure with the EMC team, all people who have a strong faith, who have a faith in Jesus, will find it sometimes difficult when this conflict is there. Then you would have no option but to quit. And then you've invested a good part of your early life, and then you've kind of felt, oh my God, what has happened? I do not want you to have that miserable feeling. Do this homework, it is going to be fantastic.
Thank you, Anand. I think we've overshot our time, but I think there are only 4 more questions. We won't take any more questions beyond these. But I think we'll quickly try to answer these for the benefit of people who are here and who are listening. So, how do you measure you are growing in your profession? You can learn it all in all situations, but how do you determine you are sufficiently growing in your profession? Emmanuel, do you have a point for this?
I think we've already answered this. We can go
Yeah.
to the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, in India, why company is forcing to learn multiple technologies instead of being the expert in one? I think it's open to either one of you to answer.
Let me take it
Yeah.
and be a little brief also. See, companies want you to learn because there's a business context. There's a customer who's willing to pay for that product. If you're not skilled enough, then they will not get that revenue. So if it is whatever multiple technologies, if they're a diversified group, they will request, they will insist. But this comes like an enforcement aspect. Okay, first and foremost, we must look at it from whose responsibility for my employment, right? Is the organization will give you the employment, but it's your responsibility to be employable. It is not the organization. So if you say it's my responsibility to be employable, then you will acquire the skills which are required. And it's not employable for a particular role or a job or a company, but for a lifetime. So think about it in that lens, then perhaps you won't have this question itself.
Great. Joshua, do you have a point to add? Or?
No, I think he's well answered that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I think the next one is a little more specific in terms of technology and all those things. So, between project management and cloud-based certification, which is the most sought out after for a person trying to get back to the workforce after a career break? So, Joshua, do you have an answer to it?
I guess my personal opinion, project management is losing steam because people want more hands-on guys now. So that answers that question.
Emmanuel, do you have a point or can we move on?
So again, Joshua has said it more than once. We'll have to be specific what his person's interests are, right? That's the important aspect. And I'm sure Joshua's running a consultancy. I'd be happy to take it as a consultant also, this question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he answered that very beautifully. Project management is going down. Yeah. So I think probably this is for somebody who's just in the final year of his college. I'm 20 years old. I'm in final year of college and yet to complete my degree due to lockdown. I want to financially support my family and I need ideas. He needs ideas to earn at least 8 to 10,000.
If I were, if I was you, I will do anything to support my family. I will join Swiggy, Dunzo, Zomato, or I will join a BPO, because these are all short term. I mean, and if you don't worry about dignity of job and dignity of labor, and I mean, I don't mind that. If I was in your situation, I will do that. I will even join a BPO and do a 6 months work with some BPO and earn money. So because it's all short term, we're not even talking about long term. There's millions of options. I mean, many.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two ways
Emmanuel, do you have-
I will respond. Two ways I'll respond. First and foremost, the intent is fantastic. It depends on what your natural instincts are. If you are a person who's able to go out, then what Josh said makes sense. But if you're a person who's more, at the home, more reading oriented, there are a lot of things like Fiverr, Upwork, freelancer, gig working sites you can look at, right? And see what you can do. Also create your own persona on social media like LinkedIn and stuff like that. And how can you do that? Start with simple things by liking people, following some people, and giving your opinion on some matters, right? You don't have to be negative and nasty. See what is start off with what is positive. Do that. Second, happy for you or anyone else. You have my email ID. I've given it to the team. Do reach out, my friend. And if anything specifically, I can respond to you, I'll be very happy to respond to you specifically, understanding your context.
Great. I think we've come to the last question. I think this is from the entrepreneur's part of it. As a business owner, is it right to lay people off at a time like this, considering their performance? I think probably on a human-centric point of view, they've asked it. Joshua and Emmanuel, you can answer this.
Who should do it first?
You can go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead.
No, I think today, you see, January this year we had ambitions of almost about 6.5% increase in GDP, rise in GDP. Then when we looked at 5 trillion by 2025, we were looking at a growth of about 11.5%. Okay. Now it's negative, or it's just about 1% or something, 1.2% or something. That's the estimates, which means the consumption also gone down. Then what does the entrepreneur do? The entrepreneur is invested. Entrepreneur probably has to service his loans, right? There's equipment, there are capital costs, there are revenue costs like office space, etc., which all have to be taken care. While yes, when you look at the human side of it, there's an issue. But no equipment is saying, hey, you hired me, but you're only using me 5% now. What happens to it? He has to pay the depreciation. So I think what is fair is important. I think layoff, if it is a business outcome, it will happen. So those of us who are on the call should understand there's another business reality which the entrepreneur is facing. And the least we can do is try and understand. Only call to the entrepreneur, the business owner, be fair, be objective, and also you will retain the skills you need. And the skills you do not need, you will have to let go. Otherwise, the enterprise will be at risk. Even the biggest biggies, Airbnb and all others have done that, right? I'm not saying it's fashionable, but that's a reality. So, which is why equipping ourselves, reskilling, upskilling is an important aspect. That's the only thing we can do for ourselves in this pandemic, right? Because you have time to reflect and work. But if you're angry, upset with the entrepreneur, I don't think it's fair. He has his own reality, and there are enough, the news is coming up of poor entrepreneurs also committing suicide because they're not able to face the loans, the banks and others. So it's a complex socio-economic thing. but then being an employer at one end as a stake, but you're not seeing the other end, what the entrepreneur or the business owner is facing. So that's my aspect. I request, therefore, I said we need to have collaboration and compassion for both sides.
Yes.
I, before I even answer that question, I mean, I would like to thank Emmanuel London for that fantastic insights, because even as an entrepreneur, I mean, some of the ideas that you gave today is fantastic. Thanks for being empathetic towards entrepreneurs, because many of don't understand what really people go through on the other side of the spectrum. Out of the $5 trillion that Emmanuel London was talking about, announced by our honorable Prime Minister by the year 2025. 20% of that 5 trillion was supposed to come from startups.
Yes.
And we really don't know how that's going to happen. I mean, it's a big question now thanks to COVID. But I'll tell you from a governance standpoint what had happened till now. I don't know about the future, but in the last 6 months, we took a call that we will not lay off anybody. We are a 350 employee organization, and it was a time where we thought it's very important to support, and by God's grace, we were able to take some of our reserves and try to manage to ensure that we can support our team. But then we had the reserves to play upon. I'm not sure if many other entrepreneurs would have that comfort level. I don't know what future will hold, but then it's a big question again. I think the right answer was given by Anand. You'll have to look at it on both sides of the spectrum, Ranjit.
Yeah.
Just want to add one more thing. I've got a
Yes.
lot of, see, I have a facility, my current role. We have about rooms, and we have a well running canteen and stuff like that. And then, even as early as May, I realized that it's going to go for a while. So people are what? Butlers, room boys, and cooks and kitchen staff. So we asked them, what interests you? So carpentry or electrical or plumbing, which are these are skills which are available. So we have been equipping these people on those skills. There's been no opportunity. There's no need yet to kind of downsize or anything. But I said this is the time to actually reskill people. So peacetime, each of us have the responsibility to reskill ourselves. I think when we look at it from our own purpose, what Joshua said, and which is goes beyond just our livelihood, but being, children of God, we have to upskill ourselves to fulfill God's purpose and plan in our lives.
I think you clearly finished it off very well, Anna. Thank you. Thank you so much to you and Josh. I think we've had some great, answers to questions. Also, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank both of you. In spite of your busy schedule, you've helped us with this session. It's really been beneficial to me, and I think I'm sure it is beneficial to everybody who's listened. On behalf of MLC and EMC, we just want to extend a heartfelt thank you to you. We hope to use you as resource persons sometime in the near future as well. We also want to thank everybody who participated today. Thank you for joining us. A couple of information before we sign off. The video of this webinar will be available in a couple of days on YouTube. It was streamed live, but the edited version will be available in a couple of days. We will also try to send it to you by email along with the resource materials that Josh and Emmanuel London have given us. So it will come up as a follow-up email to you with the YouTube links as well. Please feel free to ask any questions if you have. I think both Emmanuel London and Josh have shared their email IDs. Please feel free to ask them. And also, if you want us to forward the questions as well, please do send it to us. I think the email ID and phone numbers have been mentioned on your screen. Also, please do join us next time, which is on 12th September. We are following it up with another important session in the MLC webinar series. This is going to be on guarding your mental health against COVID-19 impact. And our speaker would be Dr. Jamila Koshi, who's a famous psychiatrist. The time, please note the time. It's at 4. It's at 4 p.m. on Saturday and not at 10 a.m. Please do note that time. It's between 4 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, the 12th of September. We hope to see you there. We hope that you're all blessed, by whatever we're doing, and the sessions that we've had so far. So once again, a big thank you. I think we'll just close with a word of prayer, and we'll sign it off. Let's pray. Father, we want to thank you for this time. Thank you for the privilege that you've given us, Lord, to listen to your people speak, Lord, and guide us in the way that, Lord, we might want to go, Master. We want to thank you for the wisdom that you've given both of them. We pray and commit both Emmanuel Anand and Joshua Madan into your hands. We pray that you bless them, Lord, bless their families, bless whatever that they're doing, Master. We want to thank you for the sessions that we had. We also pray that every participant who participated today, Lord, would take back something useful, and Lord, it will be a blessing to them, Master. We want to thank you once again for this time. We commit the rest of the week and the rest of the month into your hands. We pray that your name alone will be glorified. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you all. Please do tune in on 12th September at 4 p.m. for the next session. Thank you.
So, are we off the line?
Yes, Anna.
Yes, Anna. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.